Hello, I'm Nicholas, and welcome to another episode of DevOps Concepts, a series of videos where I do my best to explain concepts in the field of DevOps as clearly and concisely as possible. Today we're going to talk about feature flags. The objective of feature flags is to decouple feature rollout from code deployment. Decouple is basically just a fancy word for separating. So we want to separate the release of new features from the actual deployment of our code. Why do we want to do that? Well, we can't release a broken feature that's in progress. So when it's a work in progress, we don't want to release it if it's not ready yet. At the same time, we don't want to delay the release of other features that are ready just because one feature is not. Basically, this means that we want to have a trunk or master branch in our version control system that's always ready to be released. Traditionally, one way to solve this problem has been feature branches. So it's a way to ensure that trunk is always ready and no features that are still a work in progress are included in trunk or master. It's okay for some revisions of the code to be unreleasable while you're in the feature branch, but you never want trunk to be unreleasable. But feature branches do come with their share of problems, as anyone who's tried to merge two really long-lived branches can testify. Another alternative is feature flags. Feature flag is basically just a toggle that toggles a feature on or off. This way, while the feature is still being worked on, it can be kept off, and only once it's ready, it can be turned on. This allows all developers to work directly in trunk, even with unfinished code. This would be a very straightforward implementation of a feature flag. So we have a boolean new landing page active, we set it to false, and if new landing page active is true, we show the new landing page, and otherwise we show the old landing page. Very straightforward. But if we think back to our objective of decoupling the feature rollout from the code deployment, this does certainly not achieve that, because this is now kind of hard-coded that the new landing page active is false. We need to release the code. We need to deploy a new set of code, a new revision of the code base if we want to turn this feature on. Alternatively, we could use a configuration file. So we could have something like myflags.config and have some key value pairs in there, like premium accounts set to true and new landing page set to false. If we evaluate this dynamically in our code, which means that we don't just load it into memory or some kind of cache on startup, that leads to a situation where operations or anybody taking care of the servers can just turn these features off or on the fly. This means that we've now decoupled the release of the feature from the release of our code. We can release a set of code and have the feature off and turn it on at a later date without needing to make a new update of the application. The implementation in code could look something like this. We just read from some config mechanism and get a value, hopefully use an enumeration in real code, but it's pretty much the same as before. Instead, we have some kind of mechanism under the hood that's just reading dynamically from the config file that we can change on the fly. There are also some more advanced commercial platforms available. One of them is Launch Darkly. So it allows you to do stuff like give users different roles and then evaluate based on that whether you want to show a certain feature or have it active. You can also do something like gradual rollouts. If you have a new feature, you can just roll it out to first 1% of users, then just gradually roll it out more, or go back to 0% if you start seeing some serious issues with the new rollout. This was a very basic overview of feature flags. We went over how feature flags work when making new features, but of course it gets a little bit more complicated once you talk about making changes to existing features. It's doable, But of course, there's a little bit more complexity involved. In addition, like everything, the use of feature flags does incur a cost. There's a lot of different combinations of features on and off that you can have, and of course that adds to the task of for example, quality assurance with all those different combinations. And you have to remember to remove old feature flags that have been turned on for a long time, so that your feature flag config doesn't get completely bloated.